Welcome to the Dawg and Gus Show, now on Feel It Radio.
What's up, dog?
Well, Gus, today I threw you a bone.
What bone?
Well, we're going to talk about one of your favorite genres and one of your favorite time periods.
Yes, I went a little deep dive on this, but yeah, definitely the difference between East Coast and West Coast rap.
Yep.
So we are kind of getting into something I really...
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you doing that.
Hey, no problem.
You're a hell of a guy.
Well, because I'd like to know as well. I know little. I don't know lots.
I like that you are interested in music.
Me too. I like that you're interested, that I'm interested in music.
I like that you're interested in interested stuff.
Makes me more interesting.
Anyways.
Back to the syllabus.
So, if you love hip-hop music, you need to know the origin of the music you listen to so that you can differentiate it easily. It also shapes one's preferences. You get to identify with a particular kind of music if you know where it started, especially if you come from that place or if you share some aspects of life there. For rap lovers, such as myself, East Coast rap and West Coast rap is a good way to start.
Okay.
So going on that, I like both.
Okay.
I'm certainly more of a West Coast guy.
See, you're going to have to explain the difference because I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell an East Coast. I understand you will. But
so hip-hop started in the East Coast.
Okay.
Okay. So hip-hop, there was West Coast hip-hop, but it wasn't known yet.
Okay.
So it originated in obviously the West Coast of the United States and mostly features funk samples.
Okay.
So like classic funk tracks.
Nice.
That's where those beats come from. That's where, Dre, if you go to Dre's original stuff with NWA and even before that, he was always listening to records. He's just like us, right? He just loved music, loved every type. He loved Nirvana. He's a very interesting guy.
Okay.
So Dre got a lot of his beats from funk samples. So it also focuses on the aesthetics of the West Coast. It's more laid back.
Okay.
It's kind of like a chill, if you like Snoop Dogg, they're good, very chill. Originally he wasn't chill, but he became very calm and a lot of weed too, right?
Maybe just a little.
Some weed, yeah. So I actually in the East Coast originated from the East Coast of the U.S. obviously, and mostly features jazz samples. So the big difference for you to think about here is West Coast is funk, and East Coast is more jazz.
Okay.
They use the aggressive and hyper-tense sound that paints a picture of being constantly under the threat of danger.
Okay.
So that's where both types of hip hop come from danger.
Okay. So the East Coast is more.
Well, New York was such a rough place back in the late 70s, early 80s, right?
Yeah, but so was L.A.
Oh, yeah. But that was more in the early 90s, right? When the police and, against the police and all of the crack and everything like that, right? So a comparison chart, so East Coast features poverty and crime environments.
Okay. And
the West Coast is featuring gang life and anti-police sentiment environments.
Okay.
Right? NWA, kind of the gang culture as well as hating the police.
Right.
They have a song called.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually know that song.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
So again, features jazz samples in the East and features funk in the West. Hard-hitting and aggressive music features DJs and MCs from the East Coast, and then West Coast is more considered cool and laid back.
Okay.
The DJ, you look at Run DMC, and even Beastie Boys and all these East Coast guys, they all had a DJ.
Okay. Yes, they did.
And then obviously Dre was a DJ, so he did bring that feel to the West Coast, but originally it was really raw. Really, West Coast was super raw.
Okay.
So rappers from the East Coast that I love, Nas, who I talk about all the time,
yes,
Mobb Deep, Gangstar, who's amazing. The Guru is one of the greatest of all time, and Biggie. And then examples on the West Coast would be Tupac, Snoop, and Dr. Dre.
And those three I know.
Ice Cube is my favorite, but yeah.
Why isn't he on the list?
He's on the list. I just added him.
Oh.
I just out of nowhere, bud.
And just like that.
Yeah. So if you're talking so say if you were to say your favorite hip hop group or hip hop, who would it be?
I don't really have a favorite because I really don't honestly listen to that genre.
No, but if you were to,
I would probably go Tupac.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like Mom. I like.
poet.
Is that Mama? Is that the song where he talks?
Yeah.
It's basically a letter to his mom.
Yeah.
That's an awesome song. I love that.
Dear
But
Mama.
yeah,
Dear Mama.
but I haven't like really delved into others, so I can't really say for sure. But I mean, going by that, I would say Tupac.
Yeah.
Like I've heard some of Biggie's stuff. I've heard a few songs which are pretty cool, but I haven't gone that far
Yeah.
to develop a sense of.
I have to show you when we're done Biggie as a 17-year-old in the streets of Brooklyn, just freestyling.
Yeah.
And he's 17 years old.
Well, and I think Snoop too, because I think his voice is awesome.
Snoop's awesome.
And his whole
Snoop's a tremendous writer too.
and his persona too. Like
Oh,
he's
yeah,
just, you know.
yeah. He's
So-
laid back. He's
Yeah.
very West Coast.
Yeah.
Like again, like you think New York, it's more like although Jay-Z did kind of bring in a bit of a relaxed feel, but it's all like they all come from New York's a very rough place, right? Like but not that LA is like is easy either,
No,
but
no.
so I think that like most music comes from emotion, right? Like you think about rock and roll music, some of the ballads that we hear, it's heartbreak or it's, somebody dying or something like that. Like even the blues, especially the blues.
Oh, especially the blues. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas it very much comes from pain and anger in like, the hatred towards police and the hatred towards they're very anti-establishment, right? So, because the establishment let them down, like essentially. And so the way that they had an outlet was through music.
Yep.
And their music was hip hop and rap. And it was, the time was just like such a, like I always talk about the 90s and and obviously if you're listening and you've probably heard us talk about the 80s and 90s, every show we ask that question. The reason 90s for me is the hip hop era.
Yep.
I love all the 90s grunge and rock and roll as well. And of course I love some 80s music too, but hip hop wasn't big. It started in the 80s, like, Big Daddy Kane, all these guys were from the East Coast.
I think it started in the 70s.
Yeah, I think that you're right.
With Grandmaster Flash and
That was
Curtis Blow and stuff like that.
Curtis
so,
Blow,
yeah.
nice.
Like, I could pull stuff out,
Use
brother.
all the brakes. No, that's a good tune. Actually, I like that.
Was it The Letter by
The Message,
The Message by
classic,
Grandma-
probably one of the biggest hip hop songs of all time.
Yeah. Now, here's a question, because I honestly don't know. What's the difference when you say hip hop and you say rap? What's the difference? Is there a difference?
There really isn't.
Okay, so it's just another way to say urban music.
Like if you're a listener to hip hop, it's just, you know what, there is a difference. Like the hardcore rap is rap. Like they're basically kind of, I think they're just trying to like yell at you.
Yeah.
They're trying to really get a message across aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop has more flow.
Yeah.
Where like Snoop is hip hop, and
Okay.
Ice Cube has a little bit of rap and hip hop. Like he was an angry rapper,
Right. And NWA would be the same, right?
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's their whole that whole thing was born through anti-establishment and anger and Reaganomics and stuff like that. Like the whole thing that was going on in South Central LA. Like they basically South Central LA was historically a place that was built for black communities, and it was a dream that was being sold. Like you're going to live in a great area of LA, and you're going to flourish as a family and this and that, and obviously everybody kind of unfortunately sticks to their own at times. They go, you got a white community, you got a black community, you got a Hispanic community, especially in LA. Although now it's a very much a melting pot. But back then, and still South Central, crack epidemic came, and people were getting rich on selling crack, but it was also ruining communities. And when Reagan came in and brought in the war on drugs, they allowed police to do whatever they wanted. So they went into South Central and they would bash your house in, even if both your parents were working and you're going to school. They came in, they took what they wanted, or they ransacked your house, or so a lot of people were killed. And it still happens today. Like there's still police that shoot kids that aren't supposed to be shot. Well, if you're in a gang and say you're in the mob or you're in something like that, you bring that in. That's something that you're gonna either, I don't know, like what I mean. Like you can. it's really sad to see when, you try to trust your police. Of course, I trust my police here in Ottawa. It's a different thing, but then it was different.
Yeah. There's a fine line between, excessive force and, and making the decision not to shoot somebody.
That's right. And unfortunately because of people that were in gangs and all these things come from despair, right? You don't have any money, you're poor, you're going to go where money is, unfortunately. And sometimes what happens is if you're poor, you go to the bad side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether you're a Crip or a Blood, and that was another thing, by the way, like Snoop was a Crip, so the blue,
right.
And then of course Suge Knight was a well-known Blood.
Right.
So like that was a big conflict. If you watch the movie, you
I did.
See, yeah.
I did.
So he wouldn't even say Compton. He would say Bompton because he doesn't say the C because that's a Crip.
Right. Okay.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So like if you were to say difference, so again, West Coast features funk samples while East Coast features jazz samples. And while the West Coast sounds more laid back, East Coast sounds more lyrical, right? So it is very much it's a lyrical style. And as a result, West Coast sounds very chill and more musical. It's subjects mostly about drugs, racial profiling, police brutality, and slang. On the other hand, East Coast rap sounds hard-hitting and is played by a lot of MCs and DJs. East Coast rap has a lot of wit, wordplay, as well as metaphors that are motivated by social, political, or just entertainment reasons. So it's kind of, again, like almost angrier.
Okay.
Right?
All right, so we're going to talk. I'm sure we're going to talk about the East versus West Coast, and because I know we'll
get there. Yeah,
I know that they kind of drop, like you were saying, like innuendo and stuff in their music. Like you said this about me in this song, and I'm going to drop this song about you.
Oh yeah, the battles for sure. Battling in rap has been around forever.
Yeah.
So like the greatest of all time is Eminem.
Yeah.
Right. But what would have been cool is if Eminem ever got to go against Biggie, because Biggie he freestyled everything he ever sang. He didn't write anything. Whereas Tupac was a ferocious writer. And wrote, when he was in prison, he wrote 5 albums. Yeah. That's why there was still so much stuff coming out later. Because when he came out of prison, he came out with a purpose. He went in scared and then he came out mad. And the music was incredible. Just ridiculous. Again, hip hop is a culture for sure, but to reach a guy that lives in Ottawa, and in a small suburb, like not a great area, but still, I was better off than most. I no complaints, and it was just like, they reached me, man.
See, and I didn't have that, so I just.
Well, it's an era thing. Yeah. It's an age thing. It's like you had your passion for music, but it was a different style.
Yeah.
For me, it was something I've never heard before.
Yeah.
It was it was new, right? It was for me. It was for us. It was like our age group.
Yeah, and that's why my youngest brother is probably a lover of it too, because it's kind of the same. But I just, and to be honest, I still don't understand a lot of it.
Yeah, eh?
Nope.
Well, maybe you grabbed the next part, the 2 categories.
Hip-hop origins?
Well, these 2 categories.
Oh, these 2 categories feature their environments in the music, especially life in the major cities of New York and Los Angeles. This means that West Coast rap evokes a more gang-related environment. The music focuses on anti-police lifestyles. Most rappers in the West Coast grew up in gang-like life that they were stuck in, and the songs glorify it as a way of making the best out of it, reflecting the emotional aspect of growing up in this environment, which makes sense, right?
Yep.
Because they're singing and rapping about what they know.
That's right, and that's where I was saying it comes from hurt and pain and despair,
like most music does.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing with music is it's all connected. Yep. Doesn't matter, and even the beats, right? Like the beats come from jazz, or the beats come from funk,
or they come from like older blues,
older blues, but also and some rock songs. Yep. I mean, Dre sampled like Led Zeppelin and sampled the Beatles, and he's.
But then
he's so musically.
I know, but smart. if you go back to Zeppelin, they also sample blues, right? So
that's right.
So they're kind of, you know what I mean? It's
everything
all
comes around.
It comes around, yeah.
Cyclical.
Yeah.
East Coast rap lays emphasis on a life lived in poverty and crime, and that was very much New York, right? New York was It is flourishing now, but certainly in that early 90s, late 80s, early 80s, actually even the 70s when The Message came out, like you see that that video that's in New York, it just comes from nothing, right? It comes from poverty. It comes from pain. So the majority of these rappers produce heartfelt lyrical music about their struggle in this environment. East Coast rappers portray a tightly knit culture reflected by their use of slang. So, being from the East Coast, so again, we're building it into that, what happened, right? So the East Coast was very slangy, and, there wasn't quite as much of a gang membership there. There was certainly crime, but I don't think there was as much gang-related incidents as there was in the LA,
In the LA.
In the LAS. So it originated in New York City. Hip-hop originated in New York City in the 1970s, where DJs would scratch a record to create a looped rhythm, and MCs would rap over the beat. That's the grassroots of hip-hop. And it started out as a party rap. So you'd go to a party, and people would be scratching old vinyl.
See, who would think of that? Who would think to do that? Like you're playing, hey, what would happen if I started to do this?
Well, that's something we could dive into at some point. But I
just don't understand how.
Maybe they did it by accident.
Could have been, yeah.
And they're like,
Well, there were rumors about certain songs if you played them backwards, right?
That's true.
So maybe
satanic
messages
sound?
on the Beatles albums and stuff like that.
Is it true though?
Well, there's one that said if you played a certain song backwards, it said that Paul is dead. Because there's certain rumors about Paul McCartney being replaced. He died, and they replaced him with a lookalike.
Come on,
that's a Beatles folklore thing.
Wow, conspiracy! I love it. I love conspiracies.
Yeah,
and then the East Coast being the birthplace of hip hop, regional subgenres such as West Coast rap arose in the '80s, developing its own unique style, further evolving the genre to where it is today. Hip hop was developed. All rap was East Coast rap, and most of the key artists were from New York City. People such as Grandmaster Flash, Sugar Hill Gang, and so on were crucial to the development of hip hop. A key element of East Coast rap was the lyricism, as artists focused on creating complex lyrics for attentive listening rather than creating beats to dance to.
Okay,
right. So it was all about the actual lyrics, as it is in most music.
Well, I mean, except for like your EDMI or whatever it's called. EDM, electric dance music. That's
right. And I'm not down. Electronic dance music. I'm not down.
Well, I mean, it's
some of it I don't mind.
For dancing, I mean, DJing when you're when you're in a club and it's just that remix stuff. Well, I mean, it's an acquired taste, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is definitely that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. Like some cool East Coast artists started it all. Even the Beastie Boys, right? They're from Brooklyn.
So,
yeah.
No sleep.
That's right. But there's so many great artists from Brooklyn and the Bronx. Well, Biggie's from Brooklyn.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Biggie's from Brooklyn. Marcy Projects is also near Brooklyn, so that's Jay-Z and Nas, some of the greatest of all time, really. And that's where it kind of comes from. LL Cool J is from New York too.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Oh yeah, he's a big New York guy. I think he's from Queens.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is the 5 boroughs, and so originally it wasn't like East versus West; it was the boroughs,
and that makes sense because that's always been because that's kind of a gang thing too, right?
Mob mentality,
a gang mentality of I'm from Queens, you're from Brooklyn, yo. I mean,
that's
whatever,
right, that's right. Or if you're in the mob, because they all had
that's
the five boroughs, right?
Yeah,
so true. Yeah, it does come from that. It's an interesting conversation for sure. It's like because it's very territorial. Yeah. So so they call it the golden age of hip hop, which is the mid '80s to the '90s. So a lot of that mainstream hip hop was created. So Biggie was the main figure from East Coast rap. His success brought on attention to the East Coast during a time when the West Coast was gaining popularity for the rise of gangster rap, which was NWA and Slick Rick and those guys. Ready to Die came out. Welcome to Ready to Die. That's a great album, by the way. It was claimed by many to reshape East Coast rap for the gangster age because he was really, he brought it.
Okay,
he brought it. He was talking about drug deals and shooting people, and whereas and the lyrics were still incredible. It's just that he kind of reshaped and reformed the way the New York style was and brought in And that's where I think part of the West Coast hatred came from, because Tupac and Biggie were really good friends before they both went off at each other, and that was formed, I think, between P. Diddy, Puff Daddy at the time, and Suge Knight being producers. So the most famous part was like where it all kind of started to really get crazy was at the Source Awards. So the Source Awards is a big hip hop magazine.
Yes, I know. I know the magazine. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still around. And the cool thing about that was they had an award show, and it was for them. It was for hip hop artists, and it was amazing. It brought everybody together. Wu-Tang, like Biggie's, Snoop's there, Tupac's there, name it. Naughty by Nature, Mobb Deep, Nas, everybody. So they all show up. And they're kind of in sections, right? And there's already a bit of a thing between the East and the West Coast, because Tupac and Biggie, like there was something small happened between the two of them, and they were winning all the awards. So Biggie would win one, and then Tupac would win one, and then Biggie would win one, and then Tupac would win one. Best album, best artist, best this, and Suge Knight won best producer. And he went up on stage and he accepted the award, and he said, and he took shade at Puff Daddy, because he said, if you want a producer that's not going to be in your videos, not going to be all in the nice clothes, not make these pretty videos, come to Death Row. And Death Row Records at the time was built on violence. Mm-hmm. So and then eventually Dre wanted out of that, because he was, he wasn't he wasn't into that. He was a musician. He was an artist. He didn't want to be part of gang. Like that wasn't him, right? Like he wanted to just make his music and enjoy his life.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And yeah. Hey, Dawg, want some hot sauce for your tacos?
You brought your own hot sauce?
Damn right. Have you tried Gringo's Sizzling Nirvana? It'll change your life.
Nice. Are there other types of sauces?
Absolutely. There's different hot sauces for different palates, incredible barbecue sauces, red pepper jam, and salsa. All of them use fresh ingredients, and it can be delivered to your door.
Hey, how do we get some?
Go to www.gringosblazingsauces.com and order some.
Gringo's Blazing Sauces.
Bring the fire to your food. So basically what happened was that whole ordeal happened. And the way Snoop tells the story is, Nas was from a really bad background, and he had some real gangsters around him, like real bad guys, not like the fake ones that you hear in the hip hop songs and such, and hip hop artists saying they are. Some of them are former gang members and certainly, come from that culture, but got out of it to be a musician. And Nas was there with like actual bad guys, and I guess Snoop was like, man, we were talking a lot of shit, and Nas was there with real bad guys, like and like, if things hit the fan, we would have lost, because we're artists, we talk shit, but we're not actual gang members. We're not like killers. Mm-hmm. And Nas showed up with a couple, and then Nas was just like, yeah, don't worry about it. And then he walked away, and Snoop said, oh, thank God Nas didn't get mad. Because everybody was afraid of Nas, of all people.
Maybe more afraid of his company than him. People he associated with.
Certainly, yeah. And but again, Nas comes from a musical background too. His dad was a very famous, I think he's Ethiopian trumpet player.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he was
cool.
Of all things, but I think he didn't stick around. Obviously, then he had a single mom and was raised in a project and a bad neighborhood, and
gotcha.
That's where all that comes from. And then the hip hop beats emerged from Southern California that were influenced from. West Coast rap imitated East Coast party rap. However, the introduction of gangster rap allowed West Coast rap to climb the mainstream music charts. Alonzo Williams, a disc jockey from Compton, is known as the godfather of West Coast rap. Williams started a group called the World Class Wrecking Crew, which included members such as Dr. Dre and DJ Yella, who went on to become members of NWA. Hip-hop beats emerging from Southern California were influenced by electronic music, as we said before. Like funk music. Artists and groups such as Bootsy Collins, Parliament, Funkadelic, and George Clinton were major influences in West Coast hip-hop. And actually, George Clinton like Atomic Dog.
That's a great tune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Snoop Dogg does, Snoop Dogg, Snoop Doggy Dog. And What's My Name is the song. But that's that beat and that background, that sort of sound. So that's the late 80s and the 90s. Los Angeles, there was many proto-gangster artists like Ice-T, Cypress Hill, and MC Hammer emerged. MC Hammer wasn't really a gangster, but whatever. The release of NWA's Straight Outta Compton 1980 was a landmark for bringing gangster rap to the mainstream church. But yeah, that album, NWA, is like...
Yeah, it's like a cornerstone, right?
Yeah, you know how we always talk, how you and I, so much about music, and I know my stuff too when it comes to my stuff, but we all have those albums in our generation that... Yeah, maybe not like obviously the long ago's like the 150 years ago, but they certainly had music. It was just different. But you have that cornerstone, so the cornerstone album, like the Black Album,
yeah,
or like the White Album,
yeah,
or you go to Led Zeppelin 4 or Year 3. You like 3?
3,
yeah. Which one's on 3? What songs?
I can't remember, but it's the one that most people go to. It's the go-to. It's the kind of graffiti type album.
Oh, that's like Ocean.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also I go back further. I go live at Folsom Prison. Johnny Cash.
Oh yeah, that's exactly like that's iconic.
Yeah.
Cocaine Blues, man. It's like one of my favorite songs.
I know. But it's funny because you said I'm looking at this list, and I have to chuckle because I certainly don't think MC Hammer as a gangster. I'm sorry, just with the pants and can't touch this and all that. I'm sure. Well, he had his origins, right, and then he kind of just went into mainstream pop, right?
Oh yeah. Well, he didn't last long.
No,
I mean, he had two albums. Obviously, You Can't Touch This went crazy.
Yeah,
and then he had Too Legit to Quit, which was he had like all these famous athletes doing the actual Too Legit to Quit.
Yeah,
pretty funny song. Actually, I had that on tape.
Yeah, I probably have it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just kind of, it's funny because you're talking about like NWA and like all these other dudes, and then also MC Hammer.
Yeah.
It's
and Ice-T too. Like Ice-T's a huge actor now, right?
Yeah. But I know he was a big, big him and Ice Cube too, right?
Yeah.
The two of them kind of gone off into acting and stuff, but they're both prolific, right?
Prolific. And to me, Ice Cube, as I talk about, is my favorite hip hop artist, and he's the best writer because he wrote everything for NWA.
Okay.
Everything. MC Ren wrote a bit of his own stuff, but anything that Eazy-E rapped or Dr. Dre rapped, that was all Ice Cube. And then when he left after that album, there was only one album that Ice Cube's on,
right,
as a member of NWA, and he went and did his own thing. And his Eliminator album's like ridiculous and like, oh, dude, Ice Cube. And but his fingerprints are all over it because he lived obviously in Compton, and he had both his parents lived at home, so he lived in a decent house, like as far as like some stable parents, right? But he was taking a bus to a different school, like from like a nicer school, like a white person school, as they would say, and he would be on a bus and he'd be writing crazy poetry, and the bus would be like pulled over by members of the gang and like scare the shit out of these kids and then take these young guys that that weren't interested in being a gang but end up being gang members because they're 13 years old and they don't they get shown money and they get shown power, and it's a really sad thing about the way that the whole thing works. And then but they would like have him pinned on the ground. Police would have him pinned on the ground, and he was just going to school. He wasn't dealing drugs. He wasn't even doing drugs. He might have been smoking weed, who knows. But his parents would come out and be like, he's a kid, like he's not a, you know what I mean? Like we both work. Like da-da-da-da. We're just, and then the police would just treat him like shit. So that's where his anger came from, because he was a normal guy. And it's justified, right? Like it's just, like you can't treat people like that just because of a culture. Like you can't say, okay, because you're a certain color or you're a certain ethnic group, that you're a bad person. No, you can't. And that's the sad part. And of course, all the police are both, right. They're they're all like you would say Latino, black, and white. They were all they were all shit heads. Yeah. And I could say it because like I don't think they all were. Of course, you can't be generic like that. But they did. They did try and put their power forward. And then of course when what was the guy that got beat by all the police?
Rodney King.
Yeah, so the Rodney King thing, and that was what.
Well, that sparked the whole thing. In Compton, right? Like it sparked riots.
Oh, they burnt the whole, like there was burnings. There was like.
Well, it was just kind of it's like that, the whole straw that broke the camel's back, right?
Yeah.
They took so much, and
that's when NWA came up.
Yeah.
That's when it came up.
Yeah, and they keep taking it, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? No more.
Yeah, yeah, and it's all on tape. The guy gets beat with sticks, and they get off.
I know. I saw parts of it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's sad, really. But it's the music comes out of it as being some of the best music we've ever listened to, and whether you like hip hop or not, everybody knows who NWA is.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Straight Outta Compton. Everybody knows Fuck the Police, and then not all everybody knows Ice Cube's music, but if you like hip hop, you like Ice Cube. That's just
there's that influence there, and you wouldn't realize it. It's like, I really like that song, and if you go actually deep dive like you've done, oh, Ice Cube, oh, Ice-T, oh, it's like, what?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like a lot of people love the genre but don't know the genre.
That's right, and again going back to that some of the hip hop that came out that was sort of flaky. It gets, it's fun and all. Like, some of the Puff Daddy stuff that came out after Biggie died was garbage, in my opinion, because, he's not a hip hop artist. He was a producer, and he's an entertainer. He's an entrepreneur. He's very brilliant in that sense, but he's not like in my mind, a gangster rapper. That's for sure.
But I think he's going for the people out there who don't know the genre. You know what I mean? The people who are hardcore are going to say, that's just a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
But people like me who don't know it that well go, oh, okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, now I listen to hip hop. You know what I mean? And you're not really. You're listening to like the fuzzy type of hip hop. You know what I mean? Like
and the like beats that are just completely purchased, and even Vanilla Ice. Like you think of Vanilla Ice as Ice Ice Baby comes from Queen, right? And
Queen and David Bowie.
Yeah, and like what a shitty.
It's so
such a big song, but it just shows how stupid people are.
Well, that's just and it's that, and it's also the timing, the producing, and just the mentality at that point, right? Because you got that song, which is, so let's take a beat from an amazing song, and let's put some crappy lyrics to it, and market it with this white guy with this funny haircut and stuff, and all of a sudden it's like people are eating it up.
They eat it up.
And like Snow, the same, right? Like with Informer, that was just like,
he was a better artist than Vanilla Ice.
I know, but he was a little bit more talented, but still.
Canadian guy.
I know, right?
Where's he from? Toronto, I think.
I think from the Toronto area, right? Yeah. But it's sometimes it's just this. It's marketing.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes like
that's why Puff Daddy's so good too, right? He's such an entrepreneur because he's a marketing genius.
Yeah. And sometimes you can market crap and make it look like roses.
Oh, bro,
you know what I mean?
So much bad music out there.
Well, we could talk about that forever.
Well, in the origin, and then of course, getting to the point of the whole East versus West Coast, where it ended essentially, I think, is when, so Tupac dies. I think actually Biggie died first, I believe. I think, anyways, I might be wrong. Either way, they died within a year of each other, and so you have two of the brightest stars in hip hop who would have probably been writing some crazy stuff over the years because they were only 24 years old.
Yeah.
And they get shot. Both of them were shot separately. There's a lot of conspiracies. We can go into that too, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, we should.
Tupac's still alive because it named his album Machiavelli, and Machiavelli was came back.
Yeah, it's all about distraction, right? Like it's like there's a lot of people who honestly believe that he's still alive. Honestly believe they're like, and these
it's
are
like
not
Elvis. It's like Elvis.
Well, there's a lot because I think it's a little bit of you're hoping, and there's a little bit of you're crazy.
Yeah,
but it's also like you don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Elvis, like nobody wanted Elvis to die at that age, even though he wasn't really doing much. He was just doing shows in Vegas and stuff and kind of.
Which is a sad story too. Like he was
sad
stuck there.
Well, it's sad that unfortunately as you get older, that kind of happens. You know what I mean? Like if we looked at country music artists and the radio is saying, yeah, you know what? We're looking for younger, fresher stuff now. And putting these amazing artists off to the side, they're doing the same thing in hip hop, right?
Yeah. Although Elvis was the colonel that did that.
Yeah, well, he messed up Elvis big time and fucked him over.
He kept him in Vegas for like years.
Yeah,
he
was
wanted
crazy.
to go on a world tour, and he would have made millions of dollars.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm wondering if like Tupac or Biggie had survived. I'm wondering where they would be now. Like, you know what I mean? Would they still be
like
putting out relevant
like
stuff?
Jay-Z, like they would have been like, massive producers, like they would have been figureheads for big labels. Like they would have been like Dre or like Jay-Z or whoever. Like,
and I feel they would have brought up a lot of other younger artists and perpetuated the whole.
Well, they did even with their short time period.
I know, but just imagine if they were still around to influence.
It's like Jimi Hendrix or like any of them.
It's always the question, right? Like when somebody dies young, like Hendrix or Morrison or Janis Joplin, what could they have done after the age of 27?
Amazing.
Or
things.
maybe they would have just flamed out. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
We'll never know, right?
It's true. Yeah, it could have. I mean, everybody dies, right? But if they had lived another 25 years, 30 years,
what could we have gotten?
Yeah, like look at Bowie. David Bowie released some of his best stuff in the 80s, man.
Yeah.
And he was like a huge 60s, 70s guy.
Yeah.
And then to me, my favorite album is the one with was it Red Shoes or something like that? What is it called? David Bowie. It's like his big song in the 80s that I love. God, it's like
Blue Jean?
Yeah, but it's on the same album.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that album itself is like just classic to me.
Yeah. And again, like he was always changing, always innovating. And I'm sure that Tupac and Biggie would be the same. It's like, you know what I mean? This is where we are now. We need to get over here. Yeah. We need to get hip hop and rap to this place over here as opposed to where we are right now.
Well, even like the Eminems and the, Eminem is like he says like Big L's like another guy that we didn't talk about that we could talk about. I will get into is Big L, who also died young, and he was like considered the best hip hop artist coming up, and he was shot and killed, and he was like 19 or 20 years old, and had one album out, but you hear him rap and he's incredible. He's like ridiculous. So Eminem calls him the best, and then Biggie and Tupac's on there, and Nas and Redman, and so Eminem, like again, going back to where these guys come from, it's like Eminem comes from nothing as well in Detroit, right? So there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of angst, and that's where all of his passion comes from, and that's why he's one in my top three for sure. I think Eminem is third to me, and it's Tupac, then Biggie, then Eminem. But
I think for a lot of people, that would be, if you had to say their top three, they would either be in the top three or the top five.
Yeah. And again, Ice Cube's my favorite. He's probably fourth all time, though.
Yeah.
But like Ice Cube's my favorite. Shout out to Ice Cube. And Eminem, because sort of again going back. So if we were to have like a battle between if you ever watch freestyle battles, bro, you'd love it. It's amazing. But they basically shit on each other, side back and forth, and then it's called a freestyle battle. And like that's how Eminem, he won multiple and never got a chance because he was a white rapper.
Yep.
It's the other side, right? It's like, okay, well, in that culture, you're not going to have a white rapper but then Dre takes him on, and
see, this is the part that it doesn't bother me, but it kind of like, well, why? It's a cultural thing.
Yeah. Right.
But Eminem's white.
Yep.
But he's coming from the same kind of area. He's coming from a destitute area of Detroit, as opposed to LA or New York. He's singing about the stuff that he knows, just like these guys are. And yet,
but talent comes up.
He's talented. He's extremely talented.
Cream rises.
You know what? And like, not to get into the obvious racial aspects of it, but he probably brought a lot of people of non-color into rap because of how he did it.
Yeah, but nobody's even close. To him, you know what I mean? Like as far as talent, as a white rapper, there's a few, but like he's like I remember Machine Gun Kelly going after him, and I was like, "You're crazy.
You don't have a right."
No, but you don't have a right. But also, like everybody that is in hip hop knows who he is, right? Like Raekwon, who's like one of the best hip hop artists of all time in Wu-Tang, says, "Just don't mess with the white guy.
Yeah,
you don't mess with the white guy." So to have Machine Gun Kelly, who's like not a good hip hop artist. I mean, compared to what Raekwon and Ghostface Killah and Method Man and all these guys are saying about Eminem, who they all love him, and why wouldn't you? I mean, like he's so talented, and then also on the other side, like he loves everybody. He's a historian. He his favorite is Big L, and his favorite is he talks about all of the major influences that he had. He liked the Beastie Boys, but that wasn't because they were white. It was just because they were super talented, and that's the great thing about music. Even though there's racism, of course, everywhere in the world, it's awful. I hate it, but Music brings everybody together.
It shouldn't be about that. It should just be about the music. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
To quote Michael Jackson, but that shouldn't be an issue. That should never be what you grade people on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Eminem's amazing. Tupac was amazing. Biggie was amazing. It doesn't matter what color they were. It doesn't fucking matter.
No, I loved them.
I don't think it ever
matter.
It's just so entrenched in society that it drives me absolutely nuts.
Especially North American society. I mean, that's where we're talking about, of course. That's where hip hop is biggest, although there's some great English hip hop.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Oh, England has a great rap scene. But not like an East Coast, West Coast. London just hates Manchester. Manchester hates Manchester United, and they all stab each other at soccer games.
That's all because of football. It's not
football. Yeah. But East Coast, West Coast, like you would call Eminem an East Coast guy, but he didn't battle Machine Gun Kelly because Machine Gun Kelly he's from Cleveland, of all places.
I'm honestly, I don't know a lot about him.
MGK's from Cleveland, I think.
I know enough to say that you don't have the stone. You don't have any right to be dissing Eminem. I know why you're doing it.
Well, it was publicity and it worked.
Exactly.
It worked.
And sadly, it shouldn't.
No, because he got destroyed by Eminem. Destroyed. Like, it was amazing. But because that's what hip hop comes from, right?
Yeah.
It's a battle culture. It's fighting each other in a sense that it's a verbal discussion, but it's like, it's on the edge. It's on the edge.
And I just especially nowadays, right? Like everybody wants their piece in their 15 minutes. So you got to go up to the big dog, right?
Yep.
I'm bigger than.
Speaking of which, go ahead and vote for us on the Faces Awards for top podcast /podcaster.
Yeah, do that.
We're going after the big dogs.
We're going after the big dogs.
I got my dog right here.
Yeah. But it's silly at points. Like I understand he's talented, Machine Gun Kelly, to a point. I don't understand it. But again, I'm getting older and there's stuff I just really don't get these days.
For sure. And it's easy to say, of course, like we're getting older and that's definitely, again, I'm still listening to 90s hip hop. There's no way. I listen to some new stuff. I love Kendrick and I love J. Cole and I love.
See, I tried to listen to J. Cole once and I couldn't.
No, J. Cole's, but you got to listen. I'll listen to a few tracks that you should like. You got to listen to the way he rolls.
Yeah, I just
he rolls on and he just brings a lot.
No disrespect to that genre whatsoever. I'm just
not your style.
It's not me.
It's okay.
It's not me, and I just don't. Like I respect it. It's like there's amazing artists in that, and just like every genre out there, there's amazing artists and stuff. I don't listen to every genre out there.
Yeah,
I couldn't. There's just not enough time.
Yeah, so it's and I get it, man. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay, man.
It's okay, man.
There is some cool Hispanic hip hop artists too, but I think we won't.
Well, I'm sure.
Actually, Cypress Hill There's some
Cypress Hill, yeah. I know. Of
maybe Real's a white guy, but the other guys are Cuban, right?
Yeah.
So Death Row Records was a West Coast label that made gangster rap mainstream in the 90s. It was founded by Suge Knight and Dr. Dre Young in 1992. Artists such as Snoop Dogg, Coolio, and Tupac Shakur. Rest in peace, Coolio. Coolio, again, another West Coast guy. Yep. However, after Tupac's untimely death, the attention gradually drifted back over the East Coast hip-hop. And then, so Tupac died, then Biggie died. And then East Coast kind of got shitty because of Puffy. I'm not going to say that, but...
you just did.
Yeah, whatever. And, and then there was another subgenre coming up from the South. So the South was the big, like Atlanta and Louisiana and such. They you guys like Lil Wayne who came up from the South, and guys like that, and Juvenile, and some of these guys that came in the late 90s, and then of course Eminem shows up, roasts everybody. But yeah, no, it's cool how it evolved. I don't find I know you said that you don't listen to new hip hop and you don't really listen to hip hop period,
no.
but it's okay. The new stuff's just not as passionate. It's all about money and women, happens, right? Bitches, and the money. You know, whereas even back then they talked about bitches and shit, but like that, the way they speak. No offense, I'm just quoting what they said. Bitches. But they basically got everything that it was more passionate about that. It was like the Dear Mama song was about a woman, and Keep Your Head Up by Tupac is a phenomenal song about a young girl being pregnant and having to have a kid, and then the dad leaving. Like, it's just like it had more purpose. It had more. It was more interesting. It was more poetic.
Yeah.
It was It just had more. It had more. I don't know, just more like substance
and meaning.
Yeah.
No, I don't disagree, because there's a lot of like and whose fault is that? Is it the artist's fault, or is it the record label saying we need an album, put out this album? I only have 3 songs. Well, you need 7 more. You know what I mean? So you're putting out all this. You're putting out 3 great songs on an album, and the rest of it's crap. Because the record label says, you need to put that album out. You need to get this out now so we can get this out, so we can do this, we can do that.
Yeah.
So And
again, going with Kanye too, like Kanye put out amazing albums. Like whoever he is now, whatever. But back then when he was putting out Graduation and these albums, start to finish, it was like the old way. Like you used to, if you listen to Ready to Die or, Biggie's double album there, Life After Death, start to finish. You listen to The Chronic, like both of them, the one from 1993 and the one from 2000, and you have to listen from start to finish. They created a story for a reason. It's like an album that you would listen to in the 70s or 80s or 90s, maybe not 90s, but rock or blues. It starts somewhere and it ends somewhere, right? It has it's a story, and that's very much what those classic, Me Against the World, All Eyes on Me, Ready to Die, The Illmatic, like these albums, like they're just, bro, like start to finish. Like you said, now now it's like that with all musical genres. It's like you get it out.
And now it's not even about the album; it's about the singles.
Well, that's it. Even Drake's albums, like I don't think he I respect some of the stuff he does, but he's not he's not a rapper like that is angry. He comes from the suburbs of Toronto and worked at Shoppers Drug Mart and you know what I mean? Not to say that it just doesn't resonate with me, because I find that he's one of those guys that puts out a new album every year and it's one good song.
Yeah.
But sells a zillion of them and then, does very well. I'm not downplaying his success, but just there's no, I don't know. It's not a passion project anymore, like our podcast.
Yeah.
It's a passion project.
Always passionate.
Yeah.
Well, Drake. I play stuff when I play, parties and stuff. People ask me for stuff, and that's probably the first time I'm hearing it, because I just don't listen.
Yeah,
I'm just not interested.
He fills a void for some things.
Yep.
He's certainly a great club artist. You can dance to his stuff, but he's not coming out of the fire and he doesn't come from a trailer park like Eminem, or from South Central LA like Dre, Snoop, Ice Cube. He doesn't come from Brooklyn as a 17-year-old literally selling crack on the side of the road while freestyling on the side of the road. You know what I mean? It doesn't come from that place.
That's the evolution of it, right? Because it started, when it started out, it was those parts of town and that kind of, but it reached the suburbs,
of course,
and influenced people in the suburbs like Drake and whomever else has
come
along at that point. And they're singing about what they know. So, does he have a song called "Shoppers Drug Mart"? Working at the drug.
Well, there's a video first started from the bottom. Now we're here, and it's a good song. I actually like that song. But he's with the 2 buddies that he worked at Shoppers overnights with in the video, and they're in Shoppers working, and it's part of the video, which is cool because it is part of his roots.
Yeah,
and he's still friends with those guys, which is great. Well, I love that, but. But yeah,
well, that's where it comes from, right? Tupac and Biggie were coming from a lot different backgrounds and stuff. So they sang about what they lived. Drake sings about what he lives. People relate.
Of course.
You can find pretty much anything or anybody sings, you're going to relate to something that they're saying.
That's right.
It's just, I guess, just your background. Like myself, I don't understand. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I know there's some amazing lyrics and songs and Dear Mom, I love that song, but I haven't dived enough into it to actually, to say that I'm an expert, because I'm not even close when it comes to any kind of hip hop or rap.
No, at all. That's okay. It's okay. I'm glad you were here.
Yeah, thanks,
Can you
man.
have a
Well,
chat?
you know, I figured it was time for you to talk about one of your passions. And
Well,
this is a huge one for you.
Yeah, it's just molded me. I mean, obviously, like you said, I was in a suburb, and it was like, around guys that we all went to school. We all played basketball together. We all did this. That we were all from different cultures. I was a white guy. I was a black guy. There was a Chinese guy. And we all have the same music. So it brought us all together, right? And that's what it's all about. Music is all about, bridging the gap.
Yep.
And, and yes, we grew up, but we were listening to, listening to Tupac or Machiavelli album's amazing. But then also, actually speaking of another conspiracy, if you listen to the Machiavelli album at the start in the intro, that's another thing. They all did big intros, if you remember.
Yeah.
And you hear someone say, "Suge shot me."
Yeah.
Suge shot.
Well,
me.
that's from the movie, right? Like if you watched Straight Outta Compton, there's a lot of references to Suge and if he did anything to end the lives of those two amazing artists, we'll never know, right? Because there's so much conjecture as to, you ask Puff and he says one thing and Snoop Dogg says something else, and it's just like, did he really do it? Because in the movie he was portrayed as like, you don't mess around with me, man.
No, he was a bad guy.
You don't mess around with me, or something's going to happen.
He killed a guy on the set with his car.
Yeah.
Of Straight Outta Compton. He's in jail now for that, but he killed like a community member that was just there, and he hit him with his car because he drove into the actual film, like the where they were filming, and killed someone who was a huge community member.
Yeah,
did a lot for young kids there.
Yeah,
and he was a bad dude.
Yeah.
Suge Knight.
Which unfortunately there was a lot of them in that, right?
Oh like, yeah, but there's still vipers in the industry like that.
Every industry,
yeah.
The music industry is a very big place for that kind of. Well, we could talk about the Colonel with Elvis, right? He wasn't a gangster, but he was a son of a bitch who manipulated one of the biggest artists in the world.
Yeah, and basically killed him, in my opinion.
Did he destroy his career?
Well, he stopped it.
Yeah.
Like Elvis was like. Do you remember when, like in the movie? I don't remember this. You were probably you were definitely alive when this was happening, but I don't know if you remember it. Remember he was wearing that black leather, that show where he's like in the middle, and that kind of brought him back, right?
It was 1967, I think. It was his comeback, yeah.
That was like so cool.
Yeah.
Like it just showed you how cool this dude was. Like he was in a black leather outfit, and they were like singing all his songs, and there was people like, it was very cool.
Yeah, it was kind of in a round, and people were just sitting all around him and stuff. It's very, very intimate, right? And it was just him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's an amazing talent, and there's a lot of stories that I've read. Again, I don't know what's true and what's not true, but he didn't care. He was like us. He didn't care what color you were, man. You're talented. You're talented.
Yeah,
I love you, man.
He was friends with B.B. King, right?
Yeah, there was stories of him not going on stage because his backup singers weren't allowed in the stadium because they were black. He's like, no, then I'm not performing.
Yeah,
like him. Yeah. Sinatra was the same way, right? No, you're gonna let my friend Sammy come into this venue. Well, he's not. Then I'm not performing.
Yeah, none of us are.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a mentality that should be pervasive through music, at all. It doesn't matter. You're white. You're black. You're a musician. You're a good musician. Awesome.
That's all that matters.
Let's get up on stage and do something together.
Yeah, Chuck Berry with the Rolling Stones, or John Lennon, and he did. Yeah. He did. It was never. Like, I don't think that there was any of that between the artists themselves. I'm sure that some of them had some racial ideas, like Johnny Paycheck or something like that. But
yeah, he's a little red behind the neck.
Yeah, but that's a little far-fetched anyway.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
What I mean is Elvis. Remember the song, like that song that he created with the Elvis in behind him, and it was about, I think it was when Martin Luther King died. Mm-hmm. I think that's because when you can't speak, sing. You know, when he says that, and then he writes this beautiful song, and then
Elvis wasn't known for writing songs.
Actually, he didn't write it.
No, somebody else wrote it for him.
He didn't write any.
Nope. And I believe the thing with him was, if you wrote a song and Elvis recorded it, it became his. It became part of his collection, and he got all the rights and royalties to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe not all the best guy, actually.
No, that was more. I think there was more the Colonel than him. I don't think he really. I think he's like, listen, Gus, you just wrote. I really want to record that song. And then the Colonel will go, yeah, we're going to record it. But by the way, you don't have any rights to it anymore.
Yeah, he was a shiesty guy.
Yeah. And I think that was more him. I don't think Elvis was saying that. He just wanted to record.
Yeah.
I'm
Apparently he was like the Colonel, like, you know, he was a big gambler.
Yeah.
That's why he ended up in Vegas and like spent all of Elvis's money. And then, but he was like, he would roam the hotels like until he died in his like pajamas. And you'd see him like playing craps or something, just like in his like late 80s. Like guys like that shouldn't live that long, you know?
Yeah. Well, exactly. And guys like Elvis die.
That's right.
Yeah. It was the same, like, there's the famous story of Dolly Parton, right? Or I Will Always Love You.
Yeah.
Which was recorded by Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
And Coat of Many Colors, which is another amazing song of hers. Elvis wanted to record those. And she said no, because she knew what would happen if he recorded them. They wouldn't be her songs anymore.
Yeah.
And she had the balls at that. I mean, she was just starting out. And she said no to Elvis, who was the biggest thing on the planet.
The king.
Yeah. And the biggest superstar music person ever at that point in time.
Maybe ever.
And she said,
there's
nope.
a topic we can go for.
Yeah. We could do that for sure.
Good for her.
Yeah. Well, Dolly's always been Dolly, right? Yeah. And we love her.
Well, thanks, Dawg. I was appreciating going through this genre for me. I love the 90s hip hop.
Well, I know. And I like the education I just got because now I know more.
That's right, brother.
And that's what it's all about.
That's what our show's about.
Exactly.
We're educating
ourselves and whoever's listening.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. Have a great week, man.
Hey, till next time.